have a panel that really has founders of companies. In Dr. Barnik, Maitra, we have somebody who advises companies on how to build companies, how to transform companies. And while the topic of the session is about has the COVID and the remote working impacted the culture of organizations, the way we work, the big answer is yes. So I don't think we'll debate that. As I said in a mail to all of you, what we need to debate is, are we producing products that can help in this? When we're innovating, I know each one of you are doing something that impacts a certain sphere of work. What I'd like to know from you is, how has the organization culture in your organization changed? How has it impacted your work? And hopefully, what are the products that you are building for this either completely virtual experience or economy, or a hybrid economy in some cases? Because at the end of the day, this is a tech founder summit. And, Faisal, Abhinav's company is called Almond Virtex. Just wanted to correct you there. So let me start with the youngest on the panel. Let me start with Harsh. Harsh, you went to IIT Kanpur, and you're building this fintech company. Give us a sense of how the last 14 months have accelerated your being, and how has it impacted your own work culture, and most importantly, what are you doing to build something that really solves the problems that we face uniquely as a nation? Harsh Pokharna, who's the CEO and founder of OkCredit.
Thanks a lot for inviting me. So, as COVID unfolded in 2020, we as an organization faced, a big challenge, because, our activity on our platform dropped around 50-60% at that time. And the major reasons for drop in activity were that, shops were closed. So we provide a software solution for small merchants to keep a track of the credit that they're giving out in the market, and then make those collections faster. So because of that, a lot of shops closed and our activities dropped. The other thing was that we saw was that in times of uncertainty, people's tendency of giving out credit also decreases. So, even when the shops were closed, the credit giving behavior decreased. The collections suffered, right? So basically, we saw a huge decline in activity. What I am most proud about is that, our team actually rose up to the challenge. And even in those situations when we had to completely transform our working culture from being in office to a remote working, we were able to do that. And very proud to also share that, by October and November of 2020, we were actually again back to, or even crossed our pre-COVID peaks in terms of activity, right? So what I learned during this was that, while there are a lot of communication channels which are available, right? Technologically, like Slack or email, where you can communicate very easily with your employees. But the major thing is to build trust with your team, right? And that is not only through communication on Slack or email, right? For that, you actually have to be with them. You have to be with them informally. So for example, we were at the start of the pandemic, we were a default video off company, right? People would come into the meetings and we'll just be seeing each other's name on the screen. But then we made, efforts, and now again, we are mostly a default video on company where everyone turns on their video, we see each other's families, we interact with each other. So things like that have actually helped us, maintain the culture of the organization, maintain the team building, and then basically rise up to the challenge of decreasing activity and then getting it back up to pre-COVID levels. So yeah, I think, talking about our users lens, right? So we saw that while, the activity on OkCredit decreased, but we saw a huge traction for other products that we have built, right? Which is OK Shop and OK Staff, because even our merchants realized that, such situations can come anytime, and it is best for them to be prepared for the future. And the demand for such digital tools increased a lot, right? So we saw a huge traction for like these digital tools, which in the long term is like a very positive sign for us.
Thank you, Harsh. And empathy is a very important thing when you build products for your customers, for the community. So I think the last 14 months have taught us more empathy, taught us more compassion. It has brought, these were words, it has brought it into action. I think we're more sensitive to each other, we're more forgiving, and we're more sensitive to, how any product or service impacts the life of a customer, and that possibly for building new products and ideas is important. Let me bring in Anshuman Pawar. Anshuman, again, what you are doing makes a difference. And really, again, you're in the fintech space. You're trying to help recovery of money. Tell us that the last 14 months must have kept you and your platform very busy. Give us a sense of how it has been for you in the last 14 months. Anshuman?
Yeah, sure. So I think we are one of the few businesses which actually, as much as I hate saying this, profited from this entire sort of situation. So yeah, our business more than doubled over the last 14 months. As Harsh was saying, was obviously stopped. Went down. During the lockdown period, banks, NBFCs, and most of the fintechs who essentially rely on either field agencies or telecalling shops for their collections could not affect that because that solution wasn't working at all. So we saw a lot of adoption of our product at banks. Ours is essentially, it's a digitization of collections, end-to-end collections. If you look at banks, neobanks, most of the digitization tends to be in the origination side and a little bit on loan life cycle management in terms of chatbots. But where we come from is the opposite end, the far end of it on delinquency. So yeah, we actually saw an upswing, and we are again going to hopefully see an upswing because of this other thing. As much as I hate saying it, it's always I know there's with a sense of morose. I'm saying this that
it is very
people
somber.
When people are dying left, right, and center. The really sad part about this is that we were expecting to grow any which ways last year. So in mid-March, we had plans about how we will grow, and then the lockdown and all happened. So I think we were, to be honest, we were impacted for a month and a half. But then being a sort of smallish organization, we swung into action and were able to sort of agile enough to sort of shift our focus slightly in terms of strategy and grow. I think something similar is going to happen right now. We had certain business plans, I think, in March, but mid-April, again, it's going to change. But yeah, as far as our business is concerned, I think it's been positive. And I know it's sort of not something that you want to say when you're hearing when your WhatsApp is buzzing 24/7 with people asking for help and your WhatsApp groups in terms of oxygen beds and stuff. But yeah, that's the sort of case from a business perspective. I think from a team perspective and all, I must say that the good thing about startups generally is that teams tend to be small in size. And people know each other and they tend to be very agile, so they can move very fast. Having said that, the drawback of the virtual world that I foresee is that if, for example, I'm looking at scaling up and I hire people, no matter what you say, a personal connect of meeting people in an office or having those water cooler conversations can never be sort of replicated, or that camaraderie is not easy to build up, especially if someone new is coming in. If you have an old team, then okay, fine, then you can sort of have those conversations over video and all. So yeah, that I see as a challenge, but I think these are the times and the world that we live in.
Thank you so much. And I remember, seeing you couldn't present to the jury, and I saw your video and I saw your numbers, and I read your form, and clearly what you are saying, you had huge traction, and as you rightly said, the environment is such that it is only like we see more traction. So clearly there are businesses who have benefited, the solutions and ideas that have benefited and have made the lives of enterprises and also customers easier. So you're doing that, and I think if we all were to get the bright brains of the country to focus on healthcare and bringing more money into healthcare, more healthcare products and investments, I think it would help because, we are facing basic issues like, number of hospital beds, number of trained manpower, amount of oxygen. Medicines have gone through the pricing as availability is determining the pricing. So the pricing has gone through. So if startup founders focus on some of the problems that we faced in this and make sure that if ever there is a health issue of this magnitude, we are able to deal with it. I think the government needs to tap into the minds of startup founders to solve it, because there's nothing more important than saving human lives. So let me bring in Dr. Barnik Maitra. Dr. Maitra, in your role as the managing partner for such a large consulting firm, which is across the world, and with your number of years of experience consulting with organizations, what do you think are the permanent changes that have come in terms of building a collaborative culture virtually? And what are the pros and cons of that?
Yeah. So I think the biggest permanent change we've seen is actually the use of technology. I think nearly everyone around the world now knows how to use Zoom, Teams, or a variant therefore. And I think the technology adoption of people who never used it before has just increased. The second thing which we've seen, and this we've seen in the business, because we've seen a lot of geographies where, like the US and in Europe, where things are getting back to normal, all non-discretionary business travel or discretionary business travel has actually stopped, right? So I think the entire norm where companies would do offsites or would do leadership meets and retreats, some of those things are going away. So in general, I think while we may never go back or never become 100% remote, but even after COVID, we will come to a situation where travel and working out of your home location for things which are not needed are going to probably go away. Now let's talk of the cultural impact, and this is the biggest thing. I think there are two things which you've noticed which are a little disturbing about this remote working environment. I think in general there has been a very detrimental effect on the mental health of colleagues around the world, particularly younger colleagues who often look to office or coming to office as a way for socializing, as a way of making friends, and as a way of actually having a social life outside what they're doing. So there has been an impact on mental health, and we, for example, in our organization have tried many things. I wouldn't say they're all very successful. For example, we tried doing once a week yoga sessions in the morning with a yoga instructor virtually, right? You would do yoga in your house with your video on. We've tried to do virtual Friday breakfasts. But again, that entire sense of team spirit without the absence of physical gatherings is very difficult to maintain, right? So again, one impact on mental health, impact on collaboration, and third, the most disturbing impact is the impact on women in the workforce. I think the moment you go 100% work from home, I think it's the women who suffer the most. And across most countries, the labor participation rate of women has dropped dramatically. So while we generally welcome remote working, I think a lot of our firms and our clients would probably be happier if we could go back to a situation where we don't have these restrictions. People can come to office. We can cut down on discretionary travel. But again, having the office as a safe space for you to visit 3-4 days a week to work with your colleagues, collaborate with your colleagues is not that much of a bad thing to get back to.
Thank you so much, Barnik. Let me bring in Abhinav. Abhinav, you built a product earlier with your background, having worked overseas and developed product in very globally competitive market. You developed a virtual event platform very early. And clearly, events like this is a completely virtual event, but we've done hybrid events. And clearly, the adoption of technology to do events virtually has really gained traction. So clearly, you and your company have benefited from that. But tell us, when you do events, we know the advantages of virtual, that, it helps you join from wherever you are. It keeps you safe in COVID times. It saves on time and money in terms of travel. It gets us almost 100% participation from speakers and winners, 100 almost all the time. I mean, we would get 95% participation on an average. So that 5% has been great. You're able to scale up audiences. Give us the impact the current environment is happening on scaling up of events virtually.
Thank you, Dr. Batra. So yes, you have rightly mentioned that in terms of the product fit, virtual events and experiences are the product of this year, as well as it was a hit for last year. See, when you talk about scaling, there are two things in these kind of scenarios that we need to understand. Number one, simplicity. So why Zoom is extremely successful? Because it's click and join, click and join. You don't have to think twice. It has gone into your mobile phones, your homes, your desktops, everywhere. So simplicity is the key. Second, bringing engagement. So right now when I'm joining a Zoom meeting or something, there is no engagement that I can drive. But when we look at the bigger events or the conferences or large scale events, probably family events for companies, there needs to be a way of creating engagements for all the attendees. That is a differentiator. One thing that you didn't actually ask about the security aspects of it, because right now, as we are growing into virtual events every day, my data is getting shared across platforms, right? And how various companies are using this data to eventually target you as an audience again for different events. So security is a very big aspect of it. And that's where we differentiated as well. We created probably, there are only very few companies globally who are using an indie cloud architecture on which every virtual event is actually created on an individual cloud, which is separated from a master main cloud so that your data gets, no touches from any other tables from any other databases. So in terms of creating a differentiation this year, I think there are 2-3 things that, my colleagues from the virtual events or experiential industries will need to think, that people are now more looking for those huge, 3D sets, etc. They are looking for simplified experiences. They are looking to create the similar physical turning into digital, which is what we started calling phygital engagements on these virtual events. And then finally, security, as we said, is a key aspect for making sure that these events scale very beautifully. And that's what we did. We hosted India International Science Festival, which is world's largest conference for science in the world. We received 5 Guinness Book of World Records for these kind of virtual events. And one thing that clearly differentiated ourselves from the way how various of our competitors and companies around the globe were doing, that our focus was not just delivering the event, but also simplifying how people are actually attending the event, how actually they are feeling when they are attending this experience.
Thank you so much, Abhinav. Let me bring in Amit Gupta from Yulu. Mobility in the last 14 months became more important. Personal mobility became important because you wanted to travel in a safe space. You wanted to travel alone, Earlier it was about sharing and all that, but also the mobility itself, because of lockdown and because of homestays, has been impacted. Tell us a bit about how your work and what you offer has been impacted because of the kind of situation, Amit, we are facing around us, and what do you see in the future?
Yeah, so clearly when lockdown started, business for us became zero. We were not allowed to move. And then essential services were allowed to be operated. So very quickly, we were able to serve to that user base who were delivering food, grocery, medicines, etc. But that's not what has been Yulu's core focus. Our core focus has been moving people. And if you look at the larger theme, we all believe that future, even post-pandemic, is going to be more hybrid. And different organizations, they guesstimate that 30 to 40% of the people are not going to coming back to office the way they used to be before Corona crisis. And now one can argue that, hey, this is going to reduce the scope of companies who are in mobility sector. And I think answer is yes. And if, take clue from even Barnik, where people are going to cut down on unnecessary travel. For one meeting, I will go to Delhi on a matter of, on a day's notice. All of that thing will go down, which means that overall movement of people will go down. At the same time, what is happening that because earlier people were using group mobility, as we say, there's a co-passenger or driver, the preference for product like Yulu, where you are the only person, has gone up. So the top of the funnel for mobility has gone down significantly. But we have gained significant amount of market share from auto rickshaws, taxis, buses. And actually that has led to not only we've got on the same usage basis and revenue basis before pandemic, but in absolute sense, we have grown 2.5 times during this February 2020 to last month. So we actually have done well. And what we believe that this whole habit formation, which could have taken 3 to 4 years or 5 years, towards safe mobility, sustainable mobility, has been fast-tracked because of Corona crisis. So just like Anshuman and other panel members like Abhinav, our sector also got tailwind effects from Corona, and we think that this is also a good thing for the world. Forget Yulu for the time being, but we moving unnecessarily, polluting our environment, clogging our very, very congested roads, and wasting our lot of time was anyway not a good idea. And in the new normal, we all will have probably a better balance of personal time and work time. And then we are all more productive. So there's a reset in our own expectation from each other that, oh, you have to come to this meeting, you have to come in person, etc. So things will get done much more productively. Having said that, I want to echo also the sentiment around trust building. So when it comes to internal teams, it's not that easy, especially businesses like Yulu, where 2/3 of the team is always on the road. They don't have, unfortunately, an opportunity to work from home. They need to be on the road. So 1/3 of the team which is out of office, it's not philosophically or culturally okay for us to say that, okay, you work from home and 2/3 of the team is working from the ground. So during the entire pandemic, by the way, there were only those days where we were forced to shut down our office. We were closed. Otherwise, our offices were open. We gave our team members a flexibility that, okay, if something is not right, please don't come. To an extent that in January first week, we made work from office mandatory for every one of us. Although from last 3 to 4 weeks, we have again gone down to the same way that don't come to office because cases are spreading. So net, what I believe is that we are talking about a new world order where we will all travel less. At the same time, we'll travel in much more safe manner from a mindset perspective, and we will be all sustainable, because now we have seen that what a good air quality means, what a traffic situation which is not too bad, what does it mean for all of us?
Absolutely. So the only positive impact of Corona is that we become more sensitive to each other. We realize that less is more. We realize never say never. But we can't do this meeting virtually. We can do a lot virtually. I'm a very face-to-face person. I like to do every meeting, whether a trainee or a CEO or small collaboration, big collaboration. I insist on meeting the person. I earlier fly in the person, but I now know a lot of that can happen. At least most of the initial work can happen. So we don't have to travel that much. It's not good for business travel, for the airline and for the hotels, but I think it's overall good for families and for sustainability and the health of the planet. Now let me start the second leg and ask you, if you had to make a prediction for the future, a trend that we are not being able to say in a big way, what would that be? Let me start with you, Amit, and follow that direction this time. So what is that one thing that we've not yet seen, and you think will be a big enough trend for us to build products and companies around it?
So if I talk very startup centric viewpoint, our issues related to talent management will actually blow up significantly. So why, for example, Yulu was in Bangalore because Bangalore had some of the best talent pool available who can do a high quality coding. But guess what? The folks who have been earlier coding from these clogged streets, they are working out of Goa, they're working out of some exotic places. And now I have to fight for the talent, not only for startups in India, but also startups sitting in the US or big companies sitting in the US. So to me, it's actually an outsourcing 2.0, where in the beginning, likes of Infosys, Wipro, they were creating products sitting in India for the customers in the US. Now every entity, every single guy basically runs his own outsourcing shop. And although the model not going to be same, because you will be, let's say, an employee of a Google or a Facebook or the hottest company in the valley. So that will be basically a big challenge in my mind.
Are you saying the Infosys, the TCS of the world should be worried?
No, not at all. So I think they have their own work, Annurag, because they are catering to the companies in the US anyway. And not every company, especially the large one, they have appetite to manage tens of thousands of people in the distributed manner. But imagine a startup, sitting in the US who wants to get 10 high quality engineers. So they need not to recruit from someone who's right now living in the Bay Area. For that matter, why San Francisco housing market has crashed, because no one is living in San Francisco anymore. They basically all moved to some places in the US. And if I extrapolate that argument, they say, okay, I don't care whether you live in Minnesota or you live in this Michigan or whatever, you live in Bangalore or for that matter, Coimbatore, I am okay. And as long as you basically are the person who can solve my problem, you are committed and I'm game. So this talent war will actually become much more flat. For the first time, it will be even harder for companies sitting in India to compete with a startup who can pay more salary and more equity sitting somewhere.
So the point you're trying to make, Amit, is a very important point. And for some reason, I didn't ponder about it, that for smaller companies, of course, I always said now for B schools or for companies, geographical advantage or disadvantage doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And IIM Shimla can access professors across the world and by definition can be world class. Similarly, for a company, you pointed out the implication, and rightly for the startups in the tech ecosystem for building new products. I think that's a very important point you brought in. Abhinav, I'd like to know your thoughts on this.
So I think what Amit said is absolutely valid for us as well. Finding a great talent, and we are competing against the world's best of the best tech companies, because anyone can hire from anywhere. That's one of the key challenge. The second industry trend that I'm seeing, because now over the last 18 or so months, or probably, December to here, almost 15, 16 months, we have seen the power of simplified user experiences. That means that people like simplicity. No one is looking for cool tech gadget anymore. And especially, I am a gadget freak. I used to, buy those things.
Yeah, because if you were because if you were to do that one of it, but it's now become part of our life. So when something is an everyday experience, you want it to be of, basically doing the job it's supposed to do in a very simple way. That's the point you're right. Earlier, if it was a one-off experience, we would want frills with it. You're saying when you build tech products, build simplicity in them.
Absolutely. That's what my point is. And a lot of companies have started thinking about it, but I think that's going to be a huge industry trend soon, that people will be looking for getting things done in a most, less number of clicks, less number of, tracks, etc. And what would actually change this paradigm shift is that these millennials, they have gone through this phase of pandemic in very early in their lifestyle, okay, in the life stage, and they have already developed the habits. And these, power of these habits is amazing. Now we are on the couches, on my own conveniences. I don't have to walk, I don't have to talk, and I just get into an event where probably thousands of people will be watching live. Now that's a key difference here. These habits will actually change the way how we see technology creating better products in future. So I see that's a great trend that we can watch for.
And can I, I agree with you and I don't agree. What I agree with you is that yes, there is a certain value in doing a virtual event, and we'll do a lot of them, and we're doing a lot of them. My realty editorial products event is happening. And as we speak, this is a tech. We did it on 24th January physically at the Imperial last year in Delhi. And today we're doing it virtually. And I remember last Saturday we had a women entrepreneurship summit. Again, we've done it physically at the Shangri-La in Delhi last year. We did it virtually. And the winners were actually saying, I wish it was physical. So the point I'm trying to make is that while virtual events will grow, even when we have a choice, I think physical will retain its charm of being able to shake a hand, of being able to hug, hopefully at some stage again, and being able to share a meal sitting across the table, build social connections. I'm able to do business with a lot of people that I've never met. I met for the first time in the last 13 and a half, 14 months. But the fact is, Abhinav, I know you from before that, right? I met you physically. Barnik, I met you physically. That's why I'm able to do things with you. Amit, I don't know you, but we're doing business. So there is a value to virtual, but there is a value to physical experiences. And in my view, physical experiences will be more premium. Okay, and that's the view I have now. No, maybe I'm a little biased.
No, you are actually not. Unfortunately, I am seeing an opportunity in this. That's what my point is. Creating those simplified hybrid experiences is an opportunity where 50% of your people will be physical, but the other 50% who might be joining from the other 6 continents will be virtual, and they'll still be part of your event digitally. And that's the trend that I'm seeing here.
Thank you so much. Let me bring in Harsh and Anshuman again into the conversation. Harsh and Anshuman, first Anshuman and then Harsh. Anshuman, again, the fintech domain, it's really every week there is a new player coming in trying to address a certain niche or a niche within a niche, if I may say, right? Tell us, what are the trends in fintech that you see happening overall, which mirror from the way we live, from the way we work as organizations? For some reason, we are not being able to get Anshuman. So he is very much locked on. Anshuman, you'll have to switch on your video and your audio. While we are not able to get Anshuman in a physical event, he possibly would have gone to the washroom or was having a side chat with another panelist, but we don't know what he is doing right now. But let me bring in Harsh. Harsh, give us some of the trends that we are not able to see yet. They may not be big enough yet, but somebody like you is being able to see them and build products and services that kind of build on that trend.
Sure. So see, like I'll talk about first, like from a fintech or our user point of view, and then I'll also talk about a trend which we are seeing as an organization in terms of remote working. So from our users point of view, what we see is that, now earlier, like at least 3-4 years back, no one was building for unorganized businesses or the very small micro businesses, right? And the reason was that most of the organizations were sales led, right? So they had to hire a salesman, and it would not be economically feasible for them to turn an ROI by, going to the very small merchants like a pawn shop or a kirana store, right? But in the last 3-4 years, and especially with OkCredit, what we have seen is that there is a way to actually distribute software, get it adopted, and also service the entire life cycle completely digitally, right? In a product-led manner or a digital distribution-led manner, which we have seen at OkCredit, where today we have 0 salespeople in our team, right? And all of our distribution happens in a product-led or a digital distributed way. So this has actually brought the cost of acquisition or the cost of servicing a very small micro merchant by an order of magnitude down, right? Hence now making it economically feasible for companies to go build for them, which has basically democratized technology in a way for these small businesses. Right now, they also have access to technology in a very simple and affordable manner, which they can now use to digitize their business and fight with the larger corporations, right? Like which are there. So that is a big trend. And what I see is like with democratization of this technology, the next steps will be, we'll see democratization of value added services, right? Because now there's a lot of data being collected because the technology has been democratized. Now the next step is how can you use this data to now democratize other financial services or, other value added services for these micro businesses, right? Which was not there before. So that is a big trend that we see in our industry from our users' point of view. From the point of view as an organization working remotely, a trend that we are seeing and like we are also following is that instead of one big office in one big city, for example, one big office in Bangalore, we are now moving towards, smaller offices in 2 or 3 cities. For example, we have now reduced, like basically we are moving to a smaller office in Bangalore from our big office in Bangalore, while also simultaneously starting a smaller office, a co-working space in Delhi, because a lot of our employees are in Delhi and we want them to at least group up whenever possible and, meet each other and develop that bonding. So maybe, like these satellite offices in different cities, smaller, is a trend that, very early trend that I'm seeing and also following. Will be good to see, if this actually becomes a...
Harsh, you point out a very important point of view. See, earlier, the cost of hiring a person, if you relocated him or her to Delhi or Bombay or to Bangalore, would be higher than where they would be.
Yes.
Now they can be in Indore, and with your satellite office, making sure they have a similar experience of going to an office and working like in a job. And I think that's a very significant trend you point out. So you're able to hire from a Jaipur, Indore, Lucknow, Agra, which have a lot of talent to. I know that Abhinav is from Madhya Pradesh. He comes from a town called Batra, which is known for the sugar mill. He didn't need to come down to Delhi or Gurgaon. He lives in Gurgaon. And so really, I think one of the things that has happened is geographical barriers going away because of technology have created possibilities in terms of hiring, in terms of rethinking our business models and rethinking how we collaborate internally with our colleagues. Anshuman has joined in. Anshuman, I was asking you, give us in fintech one or two trends that are small right now, but as we move forward, because of the way we've behaved in the last 14 months, willingly or because we were forced to, will then offer legitimate business opportunities. Anshuman? Anshuman had issues from his desktop, so he joined from the phone. And Anshuman, can you hear us now? Anshuman,
yes, I can. I'm so sorry. See, that's
it's okay. These are minor things. Okay. One thing we learned is this doesn't impact life. Things that impact life are more important. But tell us what is the one small trend, micro trend in fintech that will become bigger and bigger as we adopt technology and as the remote working grows?
I suppose all of the one thing which has sort of happened, I suppose, during this pandemic and with people working from home is digitization and adoption of digital sort of means has increased quite significantly, as we see, whether it is communication. But I also think that from a fintech perspective, what you will see is banks and NBFCs also increasingly looking for automation, whether it's in collections or even when banks say that you're doing digitization of our underwriting or origination, that is going to significantly increase. Now, till now, you would see a lot of, and we work with banks and NBFCs, you'll see banks and NBFCs, doing some, and I'll use a word called gimmick here, that, I'll have a gimmicky sort of approach. I have the solution wherein people can sign up for a credit card completely, can sort of sign up on a credit card completely digitally. But the usage of that and the promotion of that wasn't that much. But I think that has accelerated quite a bit in terms of even onboarding customers. So I think banks and NBFCs will sort of now start increasingly looking at neo-banking, which still some time back would have been a nice trend, which sort of goes in the annual report that we're doing such a digital initiative and that. And I suspect that this sort of entire thing has given a fillip to those kind of businesses and those kind of technologies. Whether it be in collections, whether it be in lending, I think that is just going to be increasingly, you will see the larger sort of bigger lenders also actually focusing on building those solutions as opposed to just giving lip service to it. Yeah.
Thank you. I want to end the panel by asking each one of you, and let me start with you, Anshuman. I know you're at Delhi. I looked at your education credentials. By the way, in the evening, 5 to 6, we have the Tech Talk. These are Technology Founders Awards. And I was in the jury, and we looked at, of course, the quality and quantity in spite of Corona grew. And, I looked at, you're a Delhi person, and I just want to ask you one thing, and I really want to focus a little bit what is on my mind. On my mind is, how can we save lives of people, even if one life? I want to tell you about my 17-year-old daughter who's been telling me that I should donate a plasma because it can save one life, and she's not even 17, she's 16 and a half, right? And I know she means it sincerely. Tell me, what are you doing to be able to save lives beyond the sphere of work that you're in? Of course, your giving livelihoods is also important. Let's not bring down the importance of that. Also, working keeps our mind gainfully engaged. Otherwise, mind can wander and it can bring its own set of problems. So tell us, what are you doing to be able to save lives?
Good point. So essentially, from a saving lives perspective, one of the things that we as an organization did, or sort of very consciously did, was, okay, even if we, during this intervening period from October to, let's say, March end or April mid, when, work from office was opened up, we ensured that, we will have, for anyone coming into office, instituted an RT-PCR on the company's expense, that we will sort of ensure that employees are healthy on a bi-weekly basis. Every 15 days we would institute that. Other than that, I think all of us try to help in within our societies. If you have any problem here, there, whatever, I think all of us are very well connected, most of the people in startup. And let's be honest, we're probably the top 0.5% of this country on this call, if not the 0.1% of the cream de la creme. So whatever issues, and that's the sad part about it, you're seeing a lot of these things happening in your own family circles, friend circles, in your places where you live. So I think all of us are trying to do whatever bit we can. I think, more than that, everybody is trying to sort of help each other as much as possible. Try to pass as much information as one can. And I really, really hope, I think they should, it's just sad, to be honest. It's just frustrating and sad, to be honest. You had 3-4 months, and this is just extremely frustrating to sort of reach this sort of situation right now. And at these points, business sort of takes a sort of backseat, and now it just does. And I know business is there, which will go on, and you can take a bit of a hit, but it just is extremely infuriating that things could sort of reach the level they did, why they did, and all. And it is what it is. We can point blames, but it is just extremely sad. Where we as a society, as a country, as a nation have reached. I just hope things improve. I think on our own, we are doing everything. Unfortunately, I can't go out because if a lot of us might be asymptomatic and all. Even if I want to get tested right now, I cannot get tested. Things are really bad. People, we are just trying to do the best we can, to be honest.
And God bless you. And I think I keep saying hope is good, but hope is not a plan. We need a plan, and I'm sure wise startup founders like you build solutions that really help us in the long term. Abhinav, your 2 cents.
Sure, sir. So, as soon as we started seeing that things are getting really down to the hole, we actually started something that we are very proud of. We call it Abhay Fund. Abhay Fund is actually 3% of company's net profit every year that will go to any of the service providers or NGOs in need who are helping these kind of people in need to survive their lives. One more pact that we did last year, as a company, Apurva and I, we are the co-founders and the people who have been on the day one. Apurva is my younger brother, as you know. We also started something that if someone in our employee's family, lost the job, we will make sure that the person will get the job, if possible, within our network. If not, then in our company. And our first preference is, if they prefer, they can always apply for any job, not just where this person is kind of capable of. Because we were not looking for skills last year. We increased our employment ratio by 30% uptick. And we were looking for more of an attitude than the skills last year. And I think that worked really well. We found.
Thank you so much.
In our
Thank you, Abhinav. Barnik, sorry, I forgot you in the second round. Today I'm a little distracted, lots on my mind.
No.
So just forgive me for that. Barnik, your 2 cents.
No, so 2 things. One of all, we've right from the beginning of the pandemic assured everyone in our country as well as globally that no one who's associated with our company need to worry about their livelihoods. So I think we have given an assurance to every single employee that while this pandemic lasts and beyond, we will not let go of a simple employee. So that's one commitment we've made, and we're very proud of the commitment because last year, all senior leaders of the firm, including partners, took actually a 25% pay cut to ensure that we could follow through with this promise. The second thing which we've done, I think, and we started this 3 weeks back, I think we enforced very strict norms in terms of preventing people from meeting other people, shutting down offices, and asking everyone to stay safe, right? I think staying safe yourself, wearing a mask, not stepping out is the biggest service any individual can do by not infecting others. The third thing which is happening in our company, and this is very interesting, our team members in Uttar Pradesh, particularly in Lucknow, and a couple of team members like a senior board advisor, Mukesh Singh and others, have been very proactive in Lucknow in mobilizing the oxygen supply chain and providing cylinders to people in distress, right? So again, it's completely pro bono. We are not taking any money for this. But again, we are trying to contribute in whatever way we can. And there are similar other initiatives we are planning to contribute. I think even in our Bangalore facilities, we're checking if we can help people with hospital beds and all of that. But I think the best thing we can do is hope that the institutional mechanisms pick up and at least someone steps in, and which in the case government steps in and manages it. But we are trying to do our bit, trying to contribute, trying to stay safe and not add to the problems by staying safe ourselves.
Thank you so much. Amit, Harsh, your final words. First Amit and then last Harsh. Amit, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, from an organization perspective, we have increased the sanitization of our bike, making sure that any user who is using it is not getting infected because of corona. And we have a very institutional and technology way to do that. But on a personal note, Annurag, my mood was just like yours when you started the session from last 2 days. Two of my very near people were fighting their lives. And also a friend of mine, day before yesterday, called me from the US that his father is very serious and there was no ICU bed available at all. And the complexity was that he did not have the corona positive certificate. And because of that, he was not allowed any ICU access. And me being okay, I probably know a lot of people I can get the ICU, but I felt so small day before yesterday, because even if my best connection,
all of us have
I just could not
felt that. So we are in
I could not help. Yeah, I could not help him in absence of the corona report. And although the moment it came in less than half an hour, I was able to help him with the ICU bed. But I felt that this situation could have happened to anyone. And despite of your wealth, your name, and whatsoever, you are also a victim of this situation. And second incident happened yesterday where I was trying to help a family friend of mine who is also fighting his life on a ventilator in Delhi and at Apollo. Luckily, he had access to ventilator, but the doctor was very, very confused because of his case. So he wanted a second opinion. And somehow I was not able to get in touch with Dr. Devi Shetty, who basically has helped me in similar situation in the past. But luckily, his son picked up the phone and then he helped. I was very happy that that patient was out of ventilator, at least in the evening. So today morning, I'm in much better mindset than I was from last 2 days. And every phone which is ringing is actually just looks like that one more bad news coming my way. So yeah, my mind is not sane these days.
I mean, God bless you for doing what you did. And Harsh, final word from you.
No, I think most of it is covered. Like as an organization, we also like took initiatives to financially and emotionally support our team in such a crisis. And like as individuals, of course, taking all the precautions, masking, like isolating, like these are things. But